Okay, so my theme for today, my title I've given this talk is Just As You Are. And it comes from that song that David sang us, Come Just As You Are to worship. That worship was really amazing this morning. Just the words, they were just so spot on. The theme, hang on, I'm just going to move this. So the theme verse, which my talk is inspired on, is from Psalm 122, verse 1, which is, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. So this is the summer season, isn't it? This is the summer holiday season. This is the season of Christian camps, Christian festivals, isn't it? I know Birgit's been away to a festival this year. So how many of you have at some time in your life been away to some Christian festival? Maybe you've camped, or David's just been helping lead worship at one up in Keswick, which is rather amazing. Yeah, he's sinking down there. Yeah, actually elders, we were listening and we were joining in with the worship the other day. So it's that season, isn't it? It's a season for going away as churches. It's a season where people go away and spend time together. And so you may not know, but before we became Pathways Church here, a long time ago, sort of going back quite a few years now, we were Lenham United Reformed Church. And for many years, for about 10 years in a row, our church went to the Detling conference up at the county showground. Yeah. So who's been to Detling? Yes. So some of you have been to Detling with us. And some of you who have been to Detling with your churches. And I just started reminiscing on those days, because some of you, like Gail here and Marianne and Colin, had the, I don't know what you call it, the pleasure maybe of coming with us to Detling. And I just thought, our boys love reminiscing about those times. They just loved those days. And we were thinking about, my mum here, she lent us, her and dad gave us their old caravan after it got a bit old and they didn't use it anymore. And so we used to take our caravan up to Detling, and it sort of got more and more worn out, and Dave used to try and patch it up every year. And at one point the bolts were getting quite rotten, and he would like bolt it on, bolt the top on. And one year it just got so bad that he said, right, I'm going to put a strap round it to hold the roof on. So basically our caravan top was held on by a strap. And you know what Detling Hill was like? I had this vision of our caravan packed with all our food and toys and clothes and everything, going up Detling Hill, and suddenly the whole of the top sort of shearing off and rolling back down the hill. Thankfully, it didn't. We made it up. I remember the time when our middle son, Matt, some of you know Matt, came rushing back to the camp from the toilets. And he said, I've just met God in the toilets. And of course, as a parent, you're thinking, wow, he's had an encounter with God. This is awesome. It's like your heart's desire for your child, isn't it? To know God for themselves. And but it turned out actually the cleaner in the toilet looked like Morgan Freeman from Evan Almighty. So okay, it wasn't quite what we thought. Remember Helen, who some of you know, her son George came rushing back to camp one day, and he said, Josh has just done an amazing stunt on his bike. Josh is our eldest son. Unfortunately, he landed on his head. So we're like, oh no. So another visit to St John's Ambulance, another night at Detling, up all night, watching a child every hour to check that they didn't have concussion. There was a night where there was a thunderstorm, and it was just so dark. It was so pitch black. You can imagine Detling Hill with the thunder crashing around. It was so black that all you could see was the fire engine going round, checking that it was safe. And they locked down the main venue. And as was quite often happen, and you mums can identify with this, I was in the caravan. Our youngest was asleep. Everyone else was at the meetings, and the older boys were at their groups. So I'm sitting in the caravan on my own with Peter, with this thunder crashing around. They locked down all the venues, but our boys, and all the boys from our group, they decided that they were going to crawl underneath the flap of the youth tent and escape. Yay! So our children are running loose on the top of Detling Hill in this storm, and they suddenly all appear in our caravan. They ended up, the whole lot of them, huddled under our duvet with us, with this storm. But they said, it's okay. We stopped under a tree and prayed on the way back. And I'm like, no. Anyway, funny stories. But yeah, it wasn't all funny. There were profound moments. So like cooking together was really fun. There's something about just being on the same level, just sitting in a field. That's what you've got, is a field to live in, and you're all at a level. I can remember bathing the boys in these plastic storage boxes when they were little, because we didn't have bars. But I remember the worship, just amazing times of worship, amazing times of God moving, of encountering him in that worship. And I remember sitting under the stars, drinking tea, eating biscuits late at night, just talking about all the things that were happening in our lives and what God was doing, just late at night under the stars. And those were some really, really, really precious moments. But it wasn't all fun, because there was also preparation. So our kids would always invite their friends, and we always seemed to have hundreds of mouths to feed. We seemed to have these massive boxes of casseroles stashed in our freezer that every few days I had to go back and get the next one to heat up in our caravan. We spent a lot of time, Dave would often come early, putting up the marquees and putting up tents for people who didn't have tents. And there's that thing of when you arrive, where is everyone going to be? Where's our camp going to be? Which part of the county showground are we going to occupy as a church this year? And it was always quite exciting, wasn't it? Sort of wondering what I think we just about went over every corner of the site in 12 years. So why am I talking about this? So Ben introduced us last time to the theme of our weekend away, which is come join the feast. And what that is, where that comes from, is going back to the book of Leviticus, and it comes back to Leviticus chapter 23. And it's when the Israelites went away to celebrate a feast. And it was law that they had to stop, and they had to go to this feast, and when they had to feast together, and they had to stop work and celebrate. And in particular, it tells us in Exodus 23 that there are 3 times a year. So if we could just put that, 3 times in the year you shall keep a feast to me. 3 times in the year shall all your males appear before the Lord God. That's kind of a funny way of saying it, but what it's saying is that 3 times a year, all the males, and often lots of other people as well, would go up to Jerusalem, to the temple, to celebrate the feast. And there was Passover, which is at our Easter time. There's the Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost, which we know is in June normally, and the Feast of Tabernacles, which is in the autumn. So if you think about this, for some people it would be maybe a 3-day walk to get up to Jerusalem. They would have to walk there, and they'd have to walk back. They'd have to do all the preparations and the food, and what was happening with the family and all that kind of thing. And the actual feasts took a week, so they would be partying for a week. So they basically take a fortnight out to travel to Jerusalem, have this party and feast and offer their sacrifices at the temple, and then walk home again. So that means 6 weeks of their year were basically, by law, by God's law, were set aside for partying together. So I don't know, a weekend doesn't seem so much anymore, does it, when you think about it in that context? And the other thing, Jerusalem was surrounded by mountains, so there was a lot of uphill walking. So a bit like going up Detling Hill to the county showground, they kind of had to go up to Jerusalem. So they all went up to meet God on the hill, just like we did, but not quite. But yeah, I thought, there's a tenuous link there. But I can imagine the excitement of the preparation, looking forward to being together, looking forward to going up that hill, going up to the temple to meet with their God as a community. So I have got a serious bit. I have got a Bible passage to look at this morning. So it's not all frivolous stories. So when Ben asked us to pray and seek God about the weekend away, God led me to Psalms 120 to 134. And we have been doing Psalms, haven't we, in this term as a church. So it kind of seemed relevant. But you might be thinking, why those Psalms? Well, if you look in your Bible and you look up those Psalms, there's a little heading and it says Psalms of Ascent. In the Passion, it calls them Songs of the Stairway. So what are those? Well, these are songs that they sang on the way to the feast. They sang on the way up to Jerusalem. They sang them on the road. Some people think they actually sang them on the temple steps as well. Some people think there was a psalm for each step as they went up to the temple, which is why there's 15 of them. But they sang them on the road. You know, they'd have been singing them as they went through towns, as they passed along in their family groups or community groups. They'd have sung them. Jesus would have sung them as he walked to Jerusalem too. They would have memorized them because they would have known them. And it was kind of their preparation as they came to Jerusalem. So I was thinking, how can we prepare for this weekend away? Why has God led me to this? And don't switch off if you're not coming to the weekend away, because it's relevant to everybody. It's not just relevant to those who are coming away. But it is relevant to those who are coming away. It definitely is relevant to that. So how can we come and prepare? So when I realized that God was sort of prompting me to look at these Psalms, I was kind of quite excited. I thought, I wonder what those Psalms are going to be like. I was thinking about what would you sing when you're going up to Jerusalem? You know, I was thinking, wow, what amazing songs they would have sung, what amazing songs of praise, how holy and reverent would they be as they went up, the sense of God's awe and this kind of thing. No, they're not like that at all. Actually, when I read them, they're just a complete mix of everything. It's hard to find even a single theme. Well, there are themes, but they're just a complete mix. And there's nothing pretense about it at all. There's nothing religious or holy. It's just a raw cry to God, honestly, about where their lives were and where they're at. It's just a mixture. But isn't that what life's like? It's just a mixture. So I listed them out, and I've just listed the first line of them, and I'm not going to go through them. You'll be very relieved to know. I'm just going to pull out some common themes that I saw in them that will help us. So these are all the first lines. So just to get our picture, so I want you to picture in mind the temple. And King Solomon built the temple. He was the one who built that. That's where they were going, to the temple that Solomon built. And his psalm is right in the middle there, Psalm 127. That's Solomon's psalm. And then King David had the dream of the temple. King David had the vision. Though he didn't build it, he was the one who had the desire to build it. And there's quite a few psalms of his. There's 2 before and 2 after. And the rest of them are unknown. They're just songs. So keep that in mind. That's where they're going. They're going to worship their God in the temple that Solomon built. And so the first lines kind of give a flavour. So I've got just a few things. I've got a few themes. So the first theme that's in quite a lot of the Psalms is remembering how God has helped them in the past, when they were in really awful situations in the past, that God helped them. So I've got Psalm 124 there, if the Lord had not been on our side. And it goes along to list all sorts of awful things that nearly happened to them, but didn't quite, sort of disasters that they went through, but then they just managed to escape somehow. So there's an amazing psalm there of how God helped them, even though it was really dodgy and dicey at times. You've got Psalm 126, but when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. It was like things had got so bad that they couldn't believe that they would ever be restored. But then God did restore them, and they felt like they were dreaming. It was so amazing. Psalm 129, they've greatly oppressed me from my youth. But then it goes on to say, but didn't quite get the victory over me, and I have survived. I'm still here. God has brought me through. So I think one thing that we can do is whether we're preparation for the weekend away or just during this season, this summer season, as we stop and just kind of think about our life, it's kind of like the holiday season. We can remember how God has helped us in the past, and maybe you have had some near disasters. Maybe you've got some things to thank him for, that, I'm still alive, I'm still here, I'm still standing. I keep wanting to sing the Elton John song, I'm still standing. Yeah. Maybe we could sing that song and go, yeah, I'm still standing because God's got me here. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing that they did was just that raw honesty of crying out to God for help. But in the midst of that, choosing to lift their eyes up to him. So there's a lot of Psalms that have that. It says 120, I call on the Lord in my distress, and he answers me. 121, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. That is a brilliant psalm to read, Psalm 121. And of course, they would have been going up through the mountains as they went up to Jerusalem. So it's very relevant. And then thinking about the temple. But yeah, Psalm 123, I lift up my eyes to you who sit enthroned in heaven. Psalm 130, out of the depths, I cry to you, Lord. I wait for you, Lord. And in his word, I put my hope. So there's a sense that actually there's stuff that God hasn't come through for them yet, that they're still crying out in the situation, and they're just lifting their eyes to him, saying, God, help, 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 but we lift our eyes to you. So that's something we can do. What are you going through at the moment? What are you crying out to God about? We can choose to lift our eyes to him as we prepare to come and meet him. They also looked forward to the hope they had. So Psalm 130, 130. Actually, yeah, it is Psalm 130, but not from the first line, but during the rest of the psalm, it points to Christ and it points to redemption that's coming. And Psalm 132 also predicts Jesus coming to the temple. So they were looking forward to the hope of their Messiah. So we know that Jesus has already come, and we can remember the hope that we have in Jesus, can't we? So yeah, those are kind of all the mixture of stuff that was going on. But they also rejoiced in the hope of meeting God together. And now this is really important. So when we were praying as elders, Ben had this, and I had the same thought from this Psalm 122 verse 1, that I rejoiced with those who said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. So you've got the horizontal relationships with one another. So we rejoiced because we are going. Then you've got, like, in the cross, it's got a vertical and a horizontal. So you've got the vertical line of relationship with God. So we've got our relationship with God, we've got our relationship with one another. So in these songs, you get both those aspects, that they're coming together. We are coming. We are rejoicing because we're going to meet with God. So, we can ask one thing we can do. We can think about those relationships with one another and our relationships with God, and rejoice that that's all going to come together in this time that we're going away. That's something that's really special, isn't it? When we get together as a church family, it's being together, but being with God together. And why are we doing this? Why do we get together? Why do we get together on a Sunday morning like now? Why do we go away for a weekend away? And just want to come back to the middle again, to Psalm 127, which is the central point of these Psalms. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand in vain. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. But blessed are those who fear the Lord, who walk in obedience to him. You will eat the fruit of your labor. Blessing and prosperity will be yours. And we sing these songs, they sing these songs because, and as a church, we are the family of God, and unless the Lord builds it, what are we doing? We can do nothing. without him, can we? Is that this whole point of coming together and lifting our eyes to him is just acknowledging that who we are is in him. And unless he does it, we are nothing. So we come to receive from him, to meet with him, to worship him, and to connect with him together. Because unless we do that, what are we? We're nothing. Because our very purpose for existence is him. So I think that was really, it's just really wonderful how you've got all that messiness of what God has done, what he hasn't done yet, what you hope he's going to do. And yet we come together because we know that we need him. We need him. And he's going to do something. So yeah, I just wanted to summarize that. That's really all my points. So I'll just kind of bring them together, maybe just give us a time just to think about it. So I'm just going to bring it down and bring it personally. And don't switch off if you're not coming to the weekend away, because I felt that this is a significant time. And in the UK, we've got quite an advantage, I think, because of our calendar year. A new year, we think about the new year, we think of all the things, the hopes we have, and what God's going to do in the year. But then we come to this stage in August when we've almost got a reset time, because we've got the academic year starting in September, and it's time to sort of stop and say, okay, God, what did you say to me at the beginning of the year? How's it going? It's kind of like a recalibration. So I think we've got a time now to sort of come to God again and say, okay, let's just reset. And, some of us spent, some of you who were around Pathways in January, we thought about the sort of things that we hoped God was going to do, didn't we? We sat down and we thought, we want to see freedom in this area. We want to see breakthrough in this area. So we've got those things like they did that we're hoping for, that maybe they haven't happened. Maybe they have. Maybe there's testimonies that we need to start sharing. Maybe we start to need to tell each other, actually, yeah, God has done this. Maybe there's disappointments and things that actually haven't happened, and you're saying, right, okay, the year's not over yet. I'm going to come back to God, and I'm going to lift my eyes to him in this area. So I think that's something we can all do, isn't it? Whether we're coming to the weekend away or not, we can do like a reset. And particularly if we're coming to the weekend, I think it is a chance that that God can really do some stuff. So I did a little summary slide. It's not, it's no great shakes. It was just some thoughts that we could think about now. Just take a moment to think about how this year's been going. Has it been difficult? Have you got some disappointments? Well, maybe the tech person might be able to find it in a minute. Yeah. I'll have to tell you then. It's okay. Okay. Maybe I deleted it by mistake. Oh yeah, so it's basically what I've said really. So to start with, just think, like I was just saying, don't let the past and disappointments put you off coming to God. Instead, just remember the things that he's done. Share the testimonies. So yeah, I just felt like it was really important not to let past disappointments prevent us from coming to God. Just think about the past and remember what he has done. If we need to forgive one another to sort out those horizontal relationships, then let's do it. If we need to forgive God or, forgive ourselves or restore our relationship with God, let's do it. And that's, when we come to the communion, it's like almost like a reset, isn't it? So we remember what Jesus has done. Let's just press that reset and get our attitude right. Let's just, let's just acknowledge the past, the good and the bad, and just bring that to God. And I felt like I say, don't let your current situation stop you either. If you're feeling like you're in a muddle, things aren't quite right, you're not healed, God hasn't come through, whether it's physical, financial, spiritual, health, whatever you are, don't let us coming to receive from God. Let's, like they did, choose to lift our eyes to him and cry out to him honestly, and let him help us. And with that, we can keep using the Psalms. So those of you who are in Pathways, we're working through the Psalms this month. And there's some brilliant words in there. So just keep doing that. Keep crying out to God and let those words do their work. And let's, like they did, just remember the hope we have in Christ and just look forward to what God is going to do among us. Whether we're at the weekend or not, he's going to work among us. As we come to him together, our relationship with God is restored and changed. Our relationship with one another is restored and changed. And we are changed. Because as a church, we need him. And be expectant. And let's rejoice that we're going to go and be with God together. Let's rejoice that as a church, we have this God and who is with us.